sometimes when I tell it, I think sometimes when I tell that story of going from house league to Team Canada tryout in 6 years, people are like, "Oh, that's not possible." And I think that's a fixed mindset. And hopefully, this book and the chapters that are in it help people to understand that you got to have that growth mindset. And if you take little actions, every single day that aren't mind-boggling, that you actually can get a lot closer to those types of goals. So, I mean, the long story short is I grew up playing a lot of sports. I was a tomboy. I didn't really take up hockey until I was about 12 years old in any kind of way. I was like playing house league with the boys at the outdoor rink across from my house 1 day a week. So that was my hockey sort of experience in the very beginning. And then I made a rep team because my friend's dad was the coach and he put me on there, even though I really had no business being on there. So I went from house league to U13 AA, which is the highest level at that age group here in Ontario, and I was bad. I was the worst player on the team. But in every other sport I played, I was the best player on the team. So that, that athleticism or that mindset of really not wanting to suck, like that was really it that drove me. Once I got my foot in the door at that U13 AA level, I just, became obsessed with the game. And so in 6 years of really making my first rep team, I stepped on the ice for my first Team Canada tryout in Montreal. It was just that wanting to prove everyone wrong, proving to myself that I was good enough. There was not a lot of measuring sticks. There weren't a lot of elite camps. I went to hockey camp for a couple weeks in the summer every year, and everything else was grown on the outdoor rink. And I would go to the outdoor rink and just work on stuff, not because my mom or my dad told me to, and not because I had a skills coach. Um, I was fortunate enough to have an amazing coach for many of those years, Dave McMaster, who you guys would know, was my coach for my final 3 years of junior. So that certainly was useful. But it wasn't like he was showing us some magical breakout or skill to do. A lot of this was self-driven, and just, going out there and loving the work. It wasn't even just doing the work. Like I loved being out there on a Friday night. It was snowing. I was minus 40, like working on passing to myself or shooting by myself while my friends went, to a party or what have you. I mean, there was no, oh my God, I'm missing out on something. Like that's exactly where I wanted to be. And, as I rose through the ranks of college hockey and into pro and, with my cup of coffee at the national team level, um, I mean, that obsession is normal at that level. I mean, it really is. I mean, watch the Canada US game last night. Like that's normal. Not that we're doing it 24/7, but when you're in it and you're working on your craft, I mean, there's nothing that can distract you. And so I think that was really like the big secret. I wasn't the prettiest skater. Didn't have the greatest shot. I think I had a pretty good hockey IQ. I think I was an excellent passer. I think I outworked most people I played against. But you would never have seen me on the ice and been like, oh my God, who's that? Like I wasn't that type of player, but I did a lot of things right. And I think that, was the first chapter in the book, because that story, which I tell in my podcast, I think it resonates with a lot of people. So whether you want to make Team Canada or Team USA or that level or not, just that idea that you can put in a lot of work and you will get rewarded for it. But I wasn't doing it for the reward. I was doing it because I loved the work. And the rest of the book sort of echoes that. I was editing it a couple days ago, Wally, before we launched it, and I was getting fired up. And I wrote every word of it. And I'm still like reading it, going like, let's go. I want to get out on the outdoor rink. So I hope it's inspirational. I hope it is, has great information. But the biggest thing I hope it is that people can read a chapter and go, if I do this today, I'm going to get better today. Right? You don't have to take it and go do 15 power skating classes and then go, wow, my outside edge is better. Like these are really chapters that you can read. And if you just do one or two of the takeaways, it's going to make a difference. And every chapter ends with a key hockey IQ challenge. It ends with three key takeaways and a closing message from me. So the chapters are good, but that last page on the end of every chapter that tells you what to actually go and do right now, I think that's the difference because there's a lot of great books out there that I've read about hockey with the latest and greatest drills and great workouts and all, and I think that's awesome. And those are kind of long-term solutions. I'm hoping in this book there's some short-term solutions that you can take and go right away and say, like, I feel better tonight at practice. I'm playing better tomorrow in the game. And that's what I've always been trying to do with Total Female Hockey is give people stuff, whether it's coming to a practice or a game, they do it and immediately they feel like they learn something and they can apply it right away. So, it's a unique story for sure. But I don't think the passion for it, the obsession with it, and the loving the hard work is unique in any way, shape, or form. And I think, 6 years of obsession with the game and doing a lot of extra that no one else was doing, uh, it's not surprising. Like I think about my business, what I do in my business, and like 6 years of doing stuff other people just don't do is going to take you through the roof. So it would be the same thing in your athletic career as well. So, were there any other chapters there, Wally, that jumped out at you, or any others that you'd like me to dig in on?
Yeah, there there are tons, Kim, but I'm just talking about you personally. You mean your path going to the NCAA, the National Women's Program, and then getting into total female hockey, the business of hockey. Um, it's just so important. It's mind-boggling to realize that such a short time you became an elite player at the highest level, aspiring to live a dream. And you've accomplished so much in your lifetime, but you're doing more and more. And I just want to congratulate you, Tim. And I'm just hoping people that are listening take the time to read the book. And I share your stuff every time you send something out. I pass it on to over 600 people in my network of influence through the Sharks because, like you say, they'll find something that they can use. I guess my question, and Tom and Hal would be able to elaborate on this as well as you and Kim. I don't know how many players we can say, Hal and Tom, were as driven as Kim to do their best and be the best they can be. I used to say, Kim, nobody will ever make the Olympic team because they're not crazy enough. And that meant passion. And it's not crazy in a bad way. It's a totally immersion into what you love to do the most. So
Well,
I,
that's a great point, Wally, because I think that was an eye-opening experience for me. In the middle of my pro career, I moved out to Calgary, to play with the Oval, and up until that point, whether it was with my minor hockey teams at Leafside, whether it was with my college team at Dartmouth, I'd sort of always been like one of the hardest working player, like the hardest working player, the most obsessed, the most willing to do everything extra. My mindset was, a little bit more dialed in. My work ethic was a little bit more dialed in. And even in my first year pro, I played in Brampton and I think we knocked out the Arrows for the first time ever and won the provincial championship. And that was a heck of a team we had there. But I was still doing a lot of extra. And then when I finally went out to Calgary, and the timing of that was right after the '02 Olympics. So I was basically there with, Wally and the whole '02 national or Olympic team for the most part. And there was me and a few other girls who weren't on that Olympic roster. But I remember getting there and, what a privilege. You're on the ice every day with the Wickenheisers and the Goyettes and the Campbells and you name it, they're all there. And up until that point, I was like, I'm really dedicated. I do all the extra work. And like, Haley makes you feel like a lazy person who sits on the couch and eats Cheetos all day real quick. Not because she's telling you that, but just the intensity, the work ethic, the extra. I mean, that was a really eye-opening experience. I played against Haley for years, but like to actually see it day in and day out, same thing from Goyetti, to actually see how much extra they did, how much like they were just that much better than me. And while I only played there a year or two, um, it was an aha moment going like, I don't think I'm going to make the Olympic team. And that's okay. But like to actually be there and be around all those Olympians and the workouts, like we'd work out 2 or 3 times a day. We were warming up and cooling down 3 times a day, right? I had a job because I didn't have any sponsorship, so I had to do that as well. And, like I loved that hustle. I loved that grind. But I realized like they were just on another level than me. And to be able to actually feel that, I wish every player who was chasing their dreams like actually got to go and experience the exact point where they realize they've risen to the level of their incompetence. Right? Like I could play on that team, but I wasn't driving the bus on that team. I was a passenger on that team. And if you're a passenger on that team, you're not making the Olympic team. And to actually go like, oh, I get it now. That's why I haven't made that roster yet. And to actually feel it day to day, because I think when I was in college, I'm a leading scorer, I'm a captain. I go, well, how come I'm not making that team? But I was in the environment of my college team, which is a very different environment. When I actually got in the environment of the Olympic team, of the national team program. Like I said, I was able to do all of it. I wasn't, a pylon, but I wasn't an impact player, and I got to feel that firsthand. And when I've helped players, whether they want to go up a level in minor hockey, whether they want to go play college hockey or in the PWHL, like there's nothing like seeing it and feeling it on the day to day. Because it you look at it and go, I can skate like her. I can shoot well enough, but can you do the stuff day after day after day? Do you have the, Olympian habits? I thought I did, but when I actually got there with all of them, what I really realized is I didn't have the foundation because I had started late. Things I could work hard and do everything, but Goyetti and Wick and Cassie, like they made it look easy. Like, I had to work at it. It was not a struggle, but it was effort, effort, effort. Where I think a lot of the stuff they did because they had had so many years of perfecting their craft, it was a lot more effortless than it was for me. And that was really, like I said, my aha moment. But that's again what drives me now. I didn't make it. I've helped a lot of other players make it, but the reason I didn't make it wasn't because I didn't work hard enough or I didn't have good habits. It was just that the Olympians were that much more like that much had that much better foundation for a longer time that I just didn't have skill wise. But I knew I got there. I got to that level because of my habits. I got there because of my character. I got there because of my work ethic. My talent, I always say talent sets the floor and character and habits set the ceiling. Like your talent, I just did a whole video breakdown on Natalie Spooner. And Wally, I've never talked about Spooner on this. Like she is not the most beautiful player to watch, but oh my God, is she effective? Like what she does so well. And there's a lot of things she doesn't do well, but what she's great at, she's really great at. Like one of the best in the world at. You watch her on the power play for Team Canada and you're going, well, I know why you're there. You don't, she doesn't belong skill wise on the top two or three lines, right? But her gifts, she's exceptional at. And I hope players realize like Spooner's one of the most effective players in the world to play wing, to be a power play player. But if you watch her up against an Abby Murphy, they look like completely different humans, right? But I think you can understand you don't have to be great at everything. If you can be great at your craft, at those two or three things, you can have amazing opportunities. And like I said, I'm a Spooner fan, not because she's the prettiest to watch, because every shift she makes an impact. And it's not always pretty. She does the right things a lot of the time on every single shift, and it's cool to see and actually be able to digest it, and have the PWHL here to be able to watch it day in and day out and see how amazing they really are at their craft.
Thank you very much, Kim. I've got the table of contents in front of me, and the first thing I want to ask you about, referring to your book, you said 5 habits every hockey player must have, and Tom and I, and working with Girls Hockey Calgary, we spent much time on what's a habit, what is a habit, and a friend of mine years ago, Al Andrews, had a young player, a 10-year-old, who defined it as something you, you keep doing that you just can't stop doing. And we want to make those habits good. Can you talk about those habits? Because your book is designed for everyone. I think the more the competitive elite, But when you're talking Olympic standard, that's another level. Um, so can you talk a bit about the habits every hockey player must have to move forward?
Yeah, I like that definition. That it's just something you do. And if I think about the five habits I picked, um, and I'm not sure, there's a bunch of them, but the five that I picked are ones that really stand out to me in games. I think about them and I think about those elite players last night playing. I mean, they all have these habits, but I share them with, the U9 and U11 players I work with as well. Um, and some of them they can do every single shift, and some of them they're just starting to learn the habits of. But I think it's pretty universal. So the number one would be like sprinting. It's like going hard all the time. Now, I don't, there's times to slow down the game and there's times to speed up the game. But sprinting is more like when you sprint out for your shift, are you sprinting hard onto the ice or are you kind of floating it there? Are you sprinting hard off at the end of your shift? Or are you floating back in there? Right? It's how it's less like the physical manifestation of it, and it's more just your mentality. Like I go hard all the time. And it's also, am I sprinting in the off ice warm up? Am I sprinting during our workouts? Right? Am I going my hardest all the time? Right? When I need to be, right? Because there's times you need to be waiting in the slot right? As the weak side winger in D zone coverage. You're not sprinting in that moment. But when there are opportunities to go your hardest and sprint, are you always doing that? And that's the magic of video, right? If you watch the game last night, Canada US, like they're all sprinting at the right times. No one's lollygagging down the ice. But if I take my U11 team's video, there's times where they aren't sprinting on the forecheck, on the back check, to pick up their player in D zone coverage. So I think players, we can talk about these habits, but if they can actually see them in a video of themselves, I think that's when it's really transformative. So sprinting would be number one. Okay, hunting to me would be number two, and that's a word that I use all the time in coaching players of all ages. I think it's a great visual. You're going to hunt the puck hard. You're going to hunt your opponent, right? As opposed to like go getter. I think I sort of think of a tiger like going after somebody when I think about hunting. So hunting is, the way you go in on the forecheck, where you go in on the angle. The other team has the puck. How do we get it back, right? Not lazy stick checks and big flybys. Those are the ones that drive coaches crazy, whether it's the PWHL or me coaching 7-year-olds, right? So that again is a lot of a mindset. There's a lot of physical manifestations of it on the ice. But if I'm hunting, we're hunters. We're not going to be hunted. I think that's really powerful for individual players and for the team as a whole. The next one would be talking, and you've all coached girls and women's hockey, and this one is the most frustrating because they talk a whole lot off the ice and in the dressing room. And then you get on the ice, and often it's crickets. And so I think talking, especially with girls, it shows confidence. And we know that confidence is one of the most lacking things when it comes to female athletes. Talking shows you want the puck. Talking shows that you should get the puck in that moment or that you shouldn't get that puck in the moment. So you tell your D partner no. Right? I think a lot of the times, at least in girls hockey, they don't talk because they don't want to get it wrong. They're so obsessed with getting it right that they don't, and they also don't want to stand out, right? So I call for it, like, oh, maybe I look like I'm a puck hog or something. I mean, it's baffling that that's their mindset. And after 20 years of doing it, it is their mindset. They just don't communicate enough. They don't communicate enough on the bench, talking to your D partner, talking to your line mates. Hey, let's try this next time. You know, I think there's a lot of on the ice and on the bench that can be improved because you get them in the dressing room and you can't get them to stop talking. And I would guess it's similar in the guys' game. I've just spent the last 20 years, embedded in the female game. The next one I would say is scanning, and that's something honestly my U9s can do. So, that it is an amazing habit when you watch at the top level. I mean, they are looking around constantly. They know what's going on in every single moment, even though the game is complete chaos, right? They've scanned around, they've got the information, they know the patterns. But you can teach, a 7-year-old how to look over their shoulder, before they go pick up a puck along the boards. And if you're willing to hold them accountable to that, they can do it all the time. But I think you also need to teach them what they're looking for, right? Because I can scan like this and just say, yeah, I looked, right? I didn't actually take any information. So what are they looking for? Which way are they scanning? And they're going back to retrieve that puck, right? They're looking for the good guys, they're looking for the bad guys, they're looking for daylight. That's what I call open ice. They're looking for a lot of things. So a lot of times at younger players, I teach them, where's the daylight? If you're going to get a puck or you're about to receive a pass, where is the next daylight? Where's the open space? That's the first thing, right? Later on, you can teach them, oh, you're scanning for the forechecker's stick, and she's a righty, and her stick's on the right side, so you're going to turn left. I'm not sure many 8-year-olds are going to absorb all of that, right? But finding open space, every player can look for whether they're playing house league or they're playing in the PWHL. And then the last one I talk about, which I think is really hockey IQ, is how to be dangerous when you don't have the puck. And you don't have the puck 95% of the game, right? So you can be dangerous on offense, of course, when you have the little black thing. You want to be a threat to score, you want to be a threat to create when you've got the puck. But most of the time you're on offense with your team, you don't have the puck. And how many times have we seen it where players are just standing around watching the puck carrier go and do stuff, and they go, oh, I guess if they lose it, I'll go get it. Or I hope they score, right? So that to me is hockey IQ, understanding how to create time and space for yourself and for your teammates, right? But I love the idea of getting dangerous. It's not just getting open. Like I can be open. Like if we're in the offensive zone on a power play, I can go stand next to my goalie and be open. I'm completely useless there because we have a power play and I'm standing in front of my goalie, but I'm open, right? If we talk about getting dangerous, right? Now I'm a threat, right? And every player, once they cross the offensive blue line, should be a threat to score. So I think that's a powerful mindset piece for girls hockey, right? Is being that idea of being dangerous, right? Like jumping in and out of spaces, getting behind the defender's heels, getting lost on the weak side, arriving on time. Wally always talks about do the right thing in the right place at the right time. That's hockey IQ, right? And that's what the get dangerous habit is really all about. And I love demonstrating this to the young kids on the ice because, you'll tell them to do a drill. All of our drills are pretty creative, and you'll see them move a bit. And I'll be like, hey, let me show you how I would do that drill, right? Like, let's say it's a 4-on-2 in the zone you're trying to score. So there's two defenders, four attackers. Most of the girls, they kind of stand in a box. They might switch sides. They might try to feed a pass through the box, but it's like not super creative. I get in there and take one of the four player spots. I'm jumping through the slot. I'm reloading high. I'm going behind the net. The defenders look like they're in a blender, right? Now we know to do that because we played a long time. We've seen those patterns. But I think you can teach players to do that. And again, showing them video of, the PWHL players, the Olympic players, even higher level players like within their organization, and show them that there's like it's not static, and just because your coach drew an X on the board or put a circle on the board here, that doesn't mean that's where you always stay. So those are the five: the sprinting, hunting, scanning, talking, and getting dangerous. I think they're universal, and whether you're on the men's side or the women's side, but those are the ones that I see being the most effective in translating to the way you can improve your play right away, right? Like Wally, I don't think I ever toe dragged anybody in my whole life, right? And like that's a skill that like might have helped me get one or two more offensive chances, right? And I could spend a lot of hours learning how to toe drag effectively, but if I just hunt a lot harder or I scan a bit better, like that's instantly going to improve my game, which involves no toe drags. So I think these again are habits that you can just instill right away. And again, the scanning and getting dangerous, I think that takes a lot of time to get to a world-class level. But talking, hunting, and sprinting, like I can get my U9s to do it. We talk about it every game.
I the word scanning, Sammy Joe Small brought it up at least a year ago. She was working with, I think, her daughter in U9s. She said the same. And uh, they don't care. They don't look. They don't have their heads up with pucks. Without the puck, they don't scan and they don't process what they see. The biggest thing I'm finding, Kim, in youth, this is U13, the best 11 and 12-year-olds in Calgary, as their F3 stands beside their defenseman in the offensive zone and battles them. He takes himself out of the play. I'm sure you've experienced that, but that's a habit. And if I don't get through to the coaches on correcting it, we're not going to get through to the players. And sometimes the coaches don't see those things. They do their gamut of drills the way they've done all their years, and they move forward with more frustrating for me watching and for the players that they're not progressing like it sounds like yours are. Can you talk about that specific and how you've been through it? Standing and taking yourself out of the play in the offensive zone? We call it F3, finding a hole, soft spot. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the last 5 years, I've been sort of coaching an interesting age range. So my daughters are now in U9 and U11 at the top level, and I am using quotation marks because they're 9 and 7 years old. And I've been coaching the national team with Iceland, which, and I, in my skills camps, we work with everything in between, but a lot of my day in and day out has been with that U9 and U11 age group, which, is super fun to coach because either they're scared of me or they just listen to me. I could tell them to go anywhere, Wally, be like, all five of you hug in the corner, and they will do it without a question, right? And so for me, I'm very mindful at the younger ages, and I would say U13, at least here, what I see in Ontario is really that's the age where it really starts like a little more structure comes in, right? So like at U11 right now, I'm not talking about F3, right? Like in the forecheck, we don't call it the forecheck, but we have two hunting hard and one up above the play, right? Up above their checks. So top of the circles, that kind of area. But we're not designating them by letters at this point. So I think, a lot of it is, trying to avoid saying you stand here and do exactly this. And I'm trying to facilitate that a lot at the younger levels. So, I have some funny terms I call things. I don't know what you guys call like the high slot, inside the circles. Some people call it the honey hole, right? I call it a pizza. Like I actually draw if the whole circle's a pizza, I draw like a slice of pizza where that honey hole is, and I tell the players to go to the pizza. So you're F3 in the offensive zone. We're battling down low. I want you to be on the strong side pizza. Or we at least need somebody in the strong side pizza. It could be a D, right? And so now you've given it kind of a funny name, right? And sometimes I yell pizza randomly from the bench, so I look like a crazy person, right? But they understand like, and so why do we want to get in the pizza? Well, if you're in the middle of the circles, there's more likely to be a defender there, right? And on the power play, like we want people in each of the pizzas, right? And like same thing with the back door. And I draw a lot of things out on the ice. So I actually draw the pizza in that circle. I draw the back door positioning with actual markers on the ice. And I say like we need people in these areas, but how you get there, where you get there from, what position you're in is less important to me, right? But I think, if I was teaching that to the age group I'm in, F3 not getting into the thick of it in front of the net, I would tell her to be up in the pizza, right? Be up in the pizza. If the puck's in the left corner, you're in the left pizza. If the puck's in the right corner, you should be in the right pizza. Okay. And if we get the puck, you want to be in that pizza because your teammate knows there should be somebody in that pizza. Right now, if you watch PWHL or like the game last night, you see a lot of pop passes to the dot, right? That's on the breakout in the offensive zone. Like I'm kind of teaching that, but I'm just calling it a pizza. And I'm not necessarily showing them, like Heisey and Murphy doing it and dismantling Canada with it, right? But that's a general area that we want to be dangerous in when we have the puck in the offensive zone, right? A lot of the girls want to go, I call it the lava, like the stinky lava in the middle of the ice, in between the circles. They all gravitate there. And I say, why do you want to go in the stinky lava? It's stinky, you're going to get burnt. There's people there. Don't go there, right? But that's, again, that might have been what they were taught. If a lot of the players I coach have only ever been taught by me, right, as they play competitive hockey. So I don't have to break any bad habits. But this idea that we always need someone in front of the net, we always have to drive the middle of the net. I don't think that's true, right? But that's what a lot of players are taught when coaches don't understand the power of passing it from circle to circle, right? So if you go backdoor to backdoor or pizza to backdoor or backdoor to pizza. Like that's where the goalie has to move. That's where you score. So that's the way I communicate it and draw it to my players. But, it's not a play that they need to do. It's just areas that we need to fill on the ice. Because again, when I tell the girls stand exactly here, and sometimes I miss practices, Wally, and they do breakout drills, and you know the exact breakout drill they do. The girl gets it, wheels behind the net, and hits the player on the wall. And then they go up the ice together on a 2-on-0. And I'm like, that ain't it. Like that's a pattern. That's a flow drill. But when they do that drill, the next game, what do you think our players are doing on the breakout? Going behind the net and trying to hit the player on the wall who's covered, who's not there. You know what I mean? So I think the concepts of hockey are what I'm teaching, as opposed to the systems of hockey or the structures of hockey. So I talk about building shapes. I don't talk a lot about systems. And I think that, again, that's hard for coaches to do. That's not specifically in this book, because I think that's a little, that's a much larger manifesto of mine. That is what I teach in the Orange Machine stuff. So I know, Wally, you're a part of that, like the video breakdowns I send out every week. That's where I start to teach this hockey IQ piece. I do it every week with my own teams, but I do it for everybody over on the Orange Machine, where you can start, I show Poulin and Stacy on a 2-on-1 and how they manipulate the defenders and how they pass it circle to circle. And I draw the little lines and I slow it down and I pause it and I rewind it. I know a lot of coaches don't have the time or the ability or access to the footage to do a lot of that. So that's kind of a done for you solution for coaches, but also players and parents. I have a lot of parents on there who like, I thought I understood hockey and then I started watching these videos. I realized I don't know anything. But that, like I said, the way I'm teaching it to these young kids is pretty special. I think they're getting a pretty special experience. Um, but the idea that in girls hockey you have to fight that want to tell them exactly where to go because they will do it to a fault, and that kills creativity. And I think we need to foster and celebrate creativity, even if it goes wrong, and it's gonna go wrong, right? As opposed to yelling at them, you got to do this. I used to coach with the guys like never skate it in front of your own net. I'm like, never, never, ever. Okay, like or always do this when we've got the puck in the offensive zone, right? Like there's not nevers and alwayses. Um, but things like teaching them to be dangerous, teaching general areas on the ice that we need to have people in, um, I think is a kind of a fun way to do it. And I've enjoyed doing it after coaching 17 and 18-year-olds for 15 years.
Take mom's car just because I always get stuck in my car.
No, good idea.
I'm picking up somebody
But
here.
I won't be too long.
Somebody's got their speaker on. They have to turn it off.
So Wally, I just have a couple more minutes here, and then I gotta jump off. So I don't know if you have one more burning question that I can answer, or
Yeah. Well, the one thing I wanted to ask you is confidence, and it's your table contents four ways to fix your confidence problem. Can you dwell on that a little bit? Because every chapter is unique in itself, and I think it's unreal. And I think you've managed to break it down in a way I understand. And you feel the players understand it because you can teach and present it. And that's what I'm finding. Young people understand it, but we're not able to communicate it at their level. And your ability to use the pizza and that kind of thing, those catchwords are phenomenal. But I would say that confidence, I that word is scary because there's insecurity, there's confidence, and then there becomes overconfidence and arrogance. And that is what worries me the most is, but your ways to fix the confidence problem dealing with young players. Go ahead.
sure. Well, first of thing, and I know Wally, you've coached a whole range of players. In girls hockey, I could probably count the number of overconfident, cocky players I've coached on one hand, like total. And I've coached thousands of them. Boys hockey, I know it's different. But in girls, I have Team Canada level players who are like, I think I was like a 3 out of 10 in that game. Meanwhile, like they made zero mistakes. So that, I mean, we all know that to be true because we've coached women and girls for so long. So, I always tell people like, and I think I stole this from Mel, right? Mel always talks about if I could just give you confidence in a little box, like I'd be a billionaire, right? If this was full of confidence, I just like I'd probably still be on this call with you guys, but that's not how it works, right? And that's how a lot of players treat confidence is they wait for these little gifts of compliments. Oh, you did so great, Sally. Oh, what a great play. Oh, you wait for the coach or your friends or your parents or whomever to say you did a great job. And they let their confidence be controlled by somebody else, right? And to me, confidence isn't compliments. It's not this magical box, right? It doesn't hurt to get those compliments, but that's not where it comes from, right? So confidence isn't compliments. Confidence is competence. So when I get better at something that I wanted to get better at, oh, I really got to work on my backhands. So I'm going to go do 20 really good backhands every night before I go to bed. Or I really want to work on my push-ups because I'm not strong enough in front of the net. So I'm going to work my way up to doing 50 push-ups. Or my first three steps are kind of slow on the ice. So I'm going to make sure at the beginning of practice, I do some quick starts. And in every drill, I think about getting, exploding. And if you set a little goal like that and you actually do it, and I always call it like the check marks. If I say, okay, we all do this. Oh, I'm going to go work out today. And I have all the excuses of why I can't work out today. But when I work out, it's like I put a little check mark next to it. And what does that check mark do? It makes me feel good. I also got a little fitter, maybe a little mentally healthier because I went and worked out. Same thing if you go work on your shot or you're thinking about your quick starts. Okay, you get that little check mark from doing it, and I think that's confidence. But because you did the work, because it's a process goal, you actually got better. You became more competent. So I think that's really where it comes from, is that day to day, right? And that intentionality, right? When I think about my time with national team level or at the pro level, like you didn't just do drills to do drills, and you didn't just work on the PK like to work. You were thinking about, okay, here's where my stick goes, and where are her feet pointing in? Is this where I pressure? Is this where I contain? Everything had an intention, and that's where I think confidence has to come from. You have to set an intention to get better at something. And I do this all the time with teams. I've talked about it with the Sharks many times before, right? We have three specific process goals for every single game that we play. It's not just win the game, feel good, score a goal, feel good, get a shutout, feel good. But that's how a lot of players and how a lot of teams are functioning, right? They're confident when they get the result they want. I think you get confidence from getting the process right and getting those check marks. And there's very few games where we get all our check marks of winning the net front battles, winning the face-off battles, making sure we get pucks behind them off the rush. Like let's say those are the check marks, and we get all three, and I know our opponents, so okay, I think these are the three. We get them all. I guarantee you, we had a good chance of winning the game, and we're gonna feel good. You know what? Their goalie stood on their head, or oh man, like they got that one beautiful goal in the breakaway, they won 1-0 or whatever. But if I base, especially with 9 and 10-year-olds, if their self-worth is based purely on wins and losses, okay, and they're just learning the game. They know nothing. They hate when I say that. I mean, they really don't know how to play hockey yet. They know how to skate with their head up. They know how to hunt hard. They're just learning how to pass. Most of them can't really shoot. Like that's how they play hockey right now. It's like they're at the very beginning. So if I based all of their confidence based on whether I told them good job or whether the scoreboard told them good job, okay, then they've lost control, right? We're just giving the control up to everybody else. The ref makes a couple bad calls, we lost, it's the ref's fault, right? Confidence has to come from self-driven as an individual or team-driven goals that you check off and you go, hey, we did that. And in the process of doing it, you actually got better. So it's competence, not compliments. And again, the compliments don't hurt. Although I'll say coaching girls hockey, how many times have you given them a compliment and they're like, I don't know. And they have a very hard time owning compliments if they are given, right? Again, like you talked about, they're so worried about being cocky, so concerned about being seen as like, the coach's pad or thinking they're better than everyone else that they like can't even take a compliment. But that would be the overarching truth, right? Is that's where it has to come from you. It doesn't come from the magic box. And, I think if teams understand that, if coaches understand that, if individual players understand that, I think it's pretty universal. And even my 8, 9, 10 year olds, we're able to do check marks every game. And I talk to them about having a check mark for every game that personally that they want to achieve. And they can do that. And when they get the check mark, whether it's virtual or physical, they feel good. They got better. And that is where the confidence comes from.
Kim, I just want to share a story on this area. And I don't know whether it's unique or new, but it is for me. Watching coaches on the bench, they play the game out loud, they yell at them and tell them what to do. And they don't recognize little important details that they're doing well. Winning the battle, using a stick, extra effort on back check, winning the lane, protecting the puck. So I've sort of, at the recent parent meeting, creating a mission statement identifying the process as what we worry about, is task the parents with rewarding them by just praising them when on the ride home for those little details. They say most parents give $5 a goal. Or back in Cassie Campbell's day, her mom said she gave a loony a goal, but a toonie an assist. So I've just take the money out of it. Yeah, ideally, the coach should see something happening, and it so has such an impact and comment on it to everybody on the ice. And ideally, one of the coaches tapping the player on the back for that specific detail. And the players, the teammates will do it too. You pump the tires like you can't believe. So I think that idea of a positive, specific feedback and timing, the parents who watch their kids like hawks, probably in too critical a fashion, have to have a checklist of those little things that are part of the process that you're working on. And we have to celebrate them at the right time with the child, the young player, or any player, one on
No, I
one
think
and as a group. So, Kim,
I, I'm gonna
outstanding having
I'm
you.
gonna I'm gonna give you a little feedback on that because I can't control myself. I love it. I don't. You probably taught me this. Like you praise publicly and you criticize privately, right? So as a coach, if you're gonna be talking on the bench and someone does something great, they hold the blue line on the penalty kill. That one drives me nuts. You just back in and let them in. Like they can't go offside on the power play. Why are we just letting them in our zone, right? And again, coaching 9 and 10 year olds, they're like, why are you so excited? Like one game, I wanted to teach them the idea of like dumping it in because it gets behind the defender and we're really fast and we're really good at attacking from down low. So we're dumping strategically, right? Not because you can't go past that girl one on one, right? But I'm like, how am I going to teach this in such a way that when, maybe they get to a level where you have to dump, right? Because of whatever the other team's doing. So I've just started to put it in. And we had 2 games against a top opponent on a weekend. And in the first game, they dumped it once. And I cut a little video of it and I sent it to the team. I said, this is what we want to do. I said, I want to see some more of this tomorrow. I didn't show that 96 times they probably could have done it and didn't. Just showed that. So I emailed it to all the parents and the parents, they're young. All the parents on the team. I said, show this to your daughter. It was like a 14-second clip that I voiced over and drew some X's on. The next game, same opponent, same size rink. They dumped it in strategically at the right time, right? 15 times. We had no practice between those 2 games. They were back to back. And the best part was, you'll love this, Wally. The extra goalie always stands beside me on the bench I don't know, they're 10, so fine, cool. And she high-fived me every time. Every time we got a dump in, we were high-fiving, like, which to the parents in the stands, not that anyone was paying attention to me and the goalie, but as coaches, like we get excited about a great breakout or a great forecheck, and the players all look at you when you're cheering like you're crazy. And I just thought, what a cool moment that this little 10-year-old goalie is high-fiving me every time we dump it in because we had just that was a check mark, like something that I knew would help against that team, but was also something that was developmentally sound. And I think for me, like that, getting the parents looped in, I do video every week. I just finished one on penalty kill, which I'm just trying to get people kind of to be on like not completely vacate the middle of the ice when we're penalty killing. But I broke down some game footage. I made a little teaching video. It's probably 6 minutes, and I send it out to all the parents. And it's got my voiceover. It's got me drawing on it. I say, please show this to your daughter when you're driving to practice tonight, or put it on your phone, or whatever you want to do. And the amount of parents who come to me and say, like, oh, I really understand what we're doing now. And you can hear their conversations with their daughters are different. Where before it might have been you get $5 for a goal, and who knows, maybe they're still getting $5 for a goal. I've never done that, but that's nice for the kid, I guess. But I can hear them talking to them in the hallways, as they leave the rink, using the words that I've taught them, right? Prioritizing more of the right things because I've looped the parents in to the curriculum and the culture we're trying to create. And I know, Wally, you've always talked about the importance of that when it talk about the mission statement, but as well as being able to do it on the ice. And again, I can't email it directly to the players. They don't have their own email addresses, so it has to go through the parents. And the moms are the best. Like I've got quite a few moms who never played, don't know anything about hockey, and they just love it. They're like, "Oh my God, I want to like I just can't wait to watch a video." Like they've never touched the ice. They have no idea, but it's pretty cool. But I'm gonna have to jump off, guys. I appreciate the chat. Wally, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the book. Like I said, it's a fun way to take all the talking and information I share and make it actionable. So Wally, I think you've got the link if people want to get it. Maybe if you send a follow-up email, people can go and grab it. It will be on my website this weekend. So it's not up there right now because we're doing a bit of promotion. But if people want to get it who are listening, it will be under my products page on Total Female Hockey, or maybe Wally will send out a link. But I hope it's a resource that parents, players, and coaches at all levels can use and just find one or two little takeaways you can take to your next practice, your next game, your next off-ice session, and make a difference immediately. This isn't, a PhD thesis on hockey. I've written one of those before. It's too long. This is like a user-friendly how-to manual that is approachable for everybody, whether you're U9 or on the national team. So I hope everyone loves it. Thanks again, guys, and well, hopefully we can chat again soon.
Thanks, Kim, very much. Have a
Thanks,
good
guys.
one.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kim.
Well, guys, what do you think? Tom, you got your practice pan done?
Yeah.
Any takeaways there, Hal?
Well, my takeaways are that whatever girls that she coaches are extremely lucky to have a coach that's committed and aware and invested in doing, doing the right stuff, doing it the right way. So she's pretty amazing. The video thing for me is, we don't really we now have access to video, but not to the degree that, she's making her own videos and sending them, I guess, pulling clips. I don't know, do you do that, Tom?
No.
I mean,
Jim does sometime, but I don't.
yeah, it's a full-time job, but she's making a living doing it too. So that's great. I think hockey needs people like her for sure, on the boys side and on the girls side. So yeah, she's amazing.
Well, she's young and she's going to be doing it for a while, so I'm going to try to promote it. I'm going to share the book with everybody I can. It's everything she talked about is in the book,
Yeah.
but when she talks, it's just amazing. Her um, just so simplified use of the language and the catchwords to get a point across. Uh, it's just incredible. And I think the most amazing thing of all, Tom, and I discovered that with your U13 team, they get it. The kids get it. Adults, because we've been coached the way we've been coached and played the way we played, we've got a barrier that doesn't take in new and process new information. Well, these young kids are open minded and they're exposed to so much more than we ever were right now. So our adults are not us, myself, you, we're not able to coach them at the level that they're at. I think Kim is, because she's does it full time, 900%, and she's still researching what to do. So what an amazing lady doing what she's doing, and I'm just so glad she joins the Sharks once in a while. I could get her on anytime and say, Kim, let's talk about this chapter and this chapter. And I think I'll do that, and I'll keep promoting the book because I'm not sure who to get it to, and who to share it with that will pass it on and make use of it. How would you distribute something like this, knowing you've got a valuable resource here? What's the secret? The marketing idea of it.
You tell people about the book and you give them the link,
Yeah.
but all you can do, you can't. And, you being the mentor for U13, you could really recommend it highly.
Yeah.
But speaking about books, I've been in contact with a publisher quite a bit lately. Hal redid using one of Hal's pictures of kids playing outside. I replaced the cover with the Russians playing Canada there. And I think it'll just go on to Kindle and not like pretty quick. It's the big manual, book 2. And I did some edits in it and all this sort of thing. And it'll sell online for $10, which is very affordable for everybody. I really want to get Johanni's ideas, especially out there, because he's so innovative how to use the games and how to organize the ice efficiently. And there's a lot of good team play stuff in there. So it should be available within the next couple of days. I'm asking the publishers how you get it.
Cool.
Well, when you get that going, Tom, let's do a session talking about the book again, and then we'll promote people accessing it and trying to make use of it and playing with it. I know that, Tom, I've bought numerous copies and just given them to people, but I've earmarked the chapter that I know they need to appreciate the hockey IQ and the thinking process that goes into the game, which to me was sort of the unique thing of Johanni's work. He just
like he was like he's a probably smartest hockey guy I know, because he makes complicated things, he makes them simple. And then his best buddy was the Russian Olympic coach who was coaching in Turku, and they used to play against each other, with Finland and Russia. But then he's a brilliant man too, and he's also in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of Yursinov's ideas in there as well, especially in the skill development stuff. So it's very international kind of view of how they coach the game. And I went and studied European coaches a lot and got, and it was mostly because every time you wanted a skilled player, you had to bring in a European. the Flames had Kent Nielsen and everybody else. And I remember Terry Johnson talking to me, and he was playing for Quebec. And anyway, I guess Wally's when I was off here held. But anyway, he's playing for Quebec. And Peter Stastny defected and he joined Quebec. And TJ said, I couldn't believe that one guy could be so much better than everybody else. And we're all NHL players. Because just the way they develop skills compared to what we were doing at that time. So anyways,
So I had a conversation with a friend of mine who grew up playing minor hockey with Wayne Gretzky and talking about when they were Bantams, and it was a dump and chase game,
yeah,
and Wayne wouldn't do it. And he said, I can remember sitting in the locker room and Wayne drawing on the whiteboard, explaining to the coach what he was doing, trying to get to the middle of the ice. And the coach finally said, okay, you can do it, but everybody else is dumping and chasing.
yeah. Except if the yeah. But that, he's a model that hockey is trying to go back to now.
Yeah,
They did this middle drive. They went crazy with a middle drive for about 5 years, the NHL and everything. And it's great if you're racing the other team down the ice
yeah,
because you want to get there as quick as possible. But if they're back and there's players in front of you, it doesn't work. They just pick up one, and then you think of Gretzky and Curry always setting a 2-on-1 on the widest guy, and Curry would go down and cut, and Gretzky would go behind. And TJ always said he played against him quite a bit because he said it was so confusing because Gretzky would reach over the blue line with a puck. And he said what was confusing is the first guy over the blue line didn't have the puck, and then Gretzky would read, if the defense is up tight and go wide, if they backed in, he'd go into the middle all the time. And, it's all reading, not, brain dead, dump the puck in and chase it and hit them. And,
yeah.
you know,
So I saw a thing the other day about full body checking in women's hockey at the college level.
yeah. Well, I think you're going to because the pros are doing it.
Yeah.
But, I was at the Flames game last night. I think there was more hitting in my game. They played Detroit.
Oh, did they?
They go in there with one stick on the puck, bump a little.
Yeah.
The big, huge guy got in a few front of the net things, 6'8" guy.
Yeah.
But other than that, and when I saw, I think it was a Minnesota game or whatever, I mean,
Yeah.
they were so fast. It was like a super fast game of shinny.
Yeah.
And I think now with the game's changed so much because now when the D, as soon as his toes are up ice, everybody's gone. Like if he's in a battle, they'll be on the boards, to try to chip it out past the D or whatever. But if he turns up ice with his toes up ice, everybody's over the red line already.
Yeah.
There's one player back for that. So the game is such a track meet right now. It's so fast.
Tom, I watched the US game last night, Canada, and I don't know if you guys have watched it at all, but the American players are so strong and fast. And in the interview between periods with players, they had t-shirts on and they're built like they look powerful. Muscle definition. I'm sure their muscle mass is bigger than the Canadian players, but I couldn't believe how they dominated that game literally in every aspect. Speed, strength, battles, hockey sense. It was quite shocking for me to see the gap, but the score total and the goals for and against over the 3 games, it speaks for itself, as that they managed to do something in their program that where we haven't been able to do. So, and here we are working at our level trying to improve the female game, and we know the male game is what sets the bar, and it's a lot different, but I'm just still I enjoy the female game as much as watching the male game, because that's where we're working, so I can follow it, and the speed isn't too fast for me. You're right about the contact, Tom. There's more contact in the female game, Hal, than there is in the NHL games.
Huh.
Like, it's good contact. It's not like it's intimidation contact.
Right. It's owning the space.
We played a game the other day, and I saw maybe the worst call I've ever seen in my life. Their coach was whining because we're too fast for this team. So they're tripping us and all this all the time, right? So my captain's got a step on a girl, kind of a breakaway. So she tackles her, and her knee goes right in the back. She's out right now. She injured her with it, tackled her, and went down. Her knee goes in the back of her leg. And then my girl slides into the boards really fast, like really hard. And ref's hand goes up, and I think, okay, probably got a penalty shot. My player got a diving penalty. I was amazed by that.
A diving penalty?
Yeah, ref gave her diving embellishment. But I think their coach was whining because they were getting a lot of penalties. So I think it was one of those even up things, but it was a pretty illogical one. But now my player's hurt. We're playing our biggest game of the season on Saturday for first place. I don't know if she'll be able to play or not.
Hmm.
I got another one got hurt on practice in her knee, and they haven't even diagnosed it yet. Her cartilage might be gone, or I don't know what's going on. But
It's a bummer.
yeah, she probably our second best D.
Did you text me back? Text me back here. I just sent you guys a college hockey by numbers, D1 commits. I don't know
Gotta
who,
turn it so I can see it here.
who's 860. What,